Welcome to Biology Made Easy. Today we are discussing the relationship between biosphere, biome, and ecosystem. In our last lesson, we explained biosphere and said the biosphere is the part of the earth where life exists. The atmosphere, which is a mixture of gases, only the troposphere, that's the part of the atmosphere that have clouds, water, vapor, oxygen, nitrogen, the gases that living things need, that's the troposphere. Then you have the ground, the deepest parts of the ground that life can be found is where roots get. Then you have water, hydrosphere, the part of the water that life exists. All these forms the biosphere. Now, what about the biome? The biome is large land or large areas that depends on the type of species and temperature, water, soil type. So we can have this water mass as a biome because the type of species of organisms that are found in water, hydrosphere, you don't find them on land except some algae. So we can cut out this area as one biome, that's the water. You see this area with large trees, many trees, can also be looked at as a biome. This is grassland, large can be used as a biome. Then we can look at these pine tree areas as a biome. So these are examples of biomes. And as we said, they are marked out by species types, temperature, water, soil conditions, and that is abiotic factors. Well, you have forests. Forest is typically plenty of trees, big trees, grassland, typical by grass, with sometimes very short trees. Then you have taiga. This is vegetation conditions that are found in subarctic regions. And you have snow in the forest, very cold areas. You have conifers, trees, spines, spruce. Then you have tundra, which is in the Arctic regions and on mountain tops. You have snow, very cold areas. You have scanty rainfall. You have large stretches of bare ground. The vegetation is dwarf, shrubs, sedges, grasses, mosses, lichens. Then you have desert. Desert is hardly any trees, very short. You have typical succulent vegetation. So very large areas with typical species, and is based on weather conditions and soil type. So that is biomes. Now, what about ecosystem? So an ecosystem is also a unit or an area where living organisms and non-living parts of the area interact to produce a self-sustaining system whose only outside input is sunlight. So the insects we have trees, we have some herbs, herbaceous plants. We can imagine that we have some squirrel, we have snakes, and the non-living parts, we can see soil, we can see sunlight, and you by all means can imagine that the soil has some water, so we have soil water, we have mineral salts. Well, temperature also operates here because sunlight will give some temperature, that is humidity, moisture, and we have clouds. So we have ecosystem, we have living organisms interacting among themselves, non-living parts, interaction among themselves. You see, sunlight will heat the air and increase temperature and heat soil and produce evaporation of water that will increase humidity and form clouds. So the non-living part, that is the abiotic, interact with itself. Living and non-living parts also interact. So this is an ecosystem where you have the living organisms or the living parts, like the plants, being fed on by nuts being fed on by squirrels. The squirrels are being fed on by the snake. Let's say the fur and the scale of the snake decompose, produce mineral salts, and get into the soil. So here there's interaction with living and the non-living. And then soil, you have sunlight that will hit the soil, and the soil water will evaporate and increase humidity, form water vapor, form clouds. The clouds will form rain, and the rain will fall on the plants, and the plants will absorb it. And then we also have sunlight hitting the soil, increasing temperature, evaporating. So we have interaction among both living and the non-living parts, producing a system that's an ecosystem. So the biosphere is an ecosystem because the biosphere has the living parts, the non-living parts, the soil, the weather conditions interacting to produce a self-sustaining biosphere. So the whole biosphere is an ecosystem. The biome is also ecosystems. So each of the biomes is an ecosystem. But it's not all ecosystems that will be said to be biomes. So biosphere is an ecosystem. Each biome is an ecosystem, but not all ecosystems can be referred to as a biome or biosphere, because a small area of a biome or biosphere can be an ecosystem. For instance, an ecosystem can be large as a biome or biosphere, and it can be as small as a tiny pond or a spring. It's also an ecosystem. So if you take a biome like an aquatic biome, you can have freshwater ecosystem, you can have marine ecosystem, and even freshwater ecosystem. You can have a river or a stream or a lake or a pond or a spring. And the marine, you can have ocean or estuaries, intertidal zone of the small shore where water goes in and out, that's the intertidal zone. You can have mangrove, you can have salt marsh. So the relationship between biosphere, biome, and ecosystem is that the biosphere is an ecosystem, huge one. Then you can have biomes, which are large areas of land that is specific temperatures and rainfall and soil conditions, weather conditions, large areas like forests, tundra, tundra, etc. And then even in a forest, which can be a biome, you can have a small pond there, which is an ecosystem. So an ecosystem is all the three, but not every ecosystem is a biome or a biosphere. Well, this is where time will allow us. If you have any question, please put it in the comments. Please let's have your likes and kindly subscribe. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.